Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this workshop, to this call, where we're gonna be showcasing Marco, more specifically, how to set up GDK. This is a series of workshop or calls in an effort of helping people get started contributing to GitLab. So we're starting from scratch, from the basic, which is the setting up the development environment. We are gonna have other sessions as well about figuring out, identifying issues to contribute to, and other office hour calls. So I'm gonna be sharing. First of all, let me say hi to everyone here, like Marco, Roy, Ashutosh, Laurent, and AB. For everyone joining live right now, let me share with you all the link to our agenda. So please, please check it out. Add your names there. There are some topics there. If you have any questions while Marco is presenting, feel free to add your questions there. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat here. Ashutosh, I'm going to get the specific requirements now, more specifically, but you can give it a try and see how it works. And with no further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Marco. Marco, thank you so much for doing this. Also, hi to Anastasios as well, who just joined. It's really funny because we're live streaming and on YouTube, and also if you see the recording afterwards, you're all gonna see Marco and me because we are not face muted. We're not alone. It's not just the two of us. We have a nice group of people here joining. Again, I'm sharing the link to our agenda, and let me introduce Marco. Marco has been like an amazing contributor for quite a while at GitLab. He's contributing to the time management feature for a while now, and also to a lot of other stuff. He's pretty much everywhere, which is exciting. So yeah, Marco, the floor is yours.
Okay, so first of all, please bear with me. This is the first time I do something like this, so I hope everything goes well. So let me share my screen so that we can have a look at these slides. Okay, you should be able to see everything, right? Okay.
Correct.
Perfect. So let me move this off. Okay. So setting up a GDK and Git pod to contribute to GitLab. Let me first do a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm Marco, based in Italy. I always worked on desktop application and 3D graphics. So I have a strong background on C, C++, C#, and more or less low-level languages. So I never really I've never really been a web developer. So basically, I'm living proof that anyone can contribute to GitLab, because I didn't have any knowledge about Ruby on Rails, Vue, or anything that actually GitLab uses to develop GitLab. So let's start. GDK, basically to contribute to GitLab as a product. So the GitLab that we always use, for example, the web UI, time tracking, project management, and all those kind of stuff, we need to use GDK, which is the GitLab Development Kit. And we need that because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be set up on the background to actually support the GitLab installation. GDK is basically installing a local instance of GitLab on our local environment, so we can test and make changes in there. For other areas of GitLab, for example, 3A jobs or the handbook or the other areas, for example, the GitLab Kubernetes agent and those projects that are not inside of the GitLab product code base, we can contribute to those without needing GDK. And that's important because GDK is quite heavy in terms of spaces and resources, because it's quite heavy. It takes a bit of time to set up the first time, and also to update when we want to update it. But there is a workaround to that, which is using Gitpod. And Gitpod basically can be used to set up, in this case, a GDK instance remotely, and we can connect to it with VS Code locally or directly using the web interface. So we can contribute to GitLab without needing to set up GDK locally, for example, if we don't have a computer that can support it. So to start working on GitLab, we need to fork the GitLab project. And that's not only true for the GitLab project, but to all the projects related to GitLab. For example, again, 3A jobs, the handbook, and all those projects, because we, as contributors, we don't have access to those projects directly. So we can't create branches or push changes directly to those projects. We have to use forks and create merge requests from our forks to the main project. We have two choices. We can create our own personal fork, but if we do that, we have to manually keep in sync with the master of the original project, if we don't have pull mirroring, which is only a premium feature on GitLab. And we also can run out of CI minutes, because every time that we push some changes to an MR, a pipeline starts, and that's using CI minutes from our GitLab, how can I say it, for the time that we have available on our account to run pipelines on GitLab as a software as a service. And we also have another downside, because using our own personal forks, it's harder to collaborate with our other contributors, because we have to manually give them access to our fork so that they can push changes to, for example, if we are working on a branch and we have some other people helping out, they can't push changes to that one until we give them access to our fork. The solution to that is actually something that we started quite recently as a experiment, and it's going pretty well. So I think this will be the default moving on. Basically, we created some forks that are handled by GitLab themselves, and we can request access to those forks. And for example, if we want to work on a project that's not already inside of these community forks, we can ask the team to actually create the fork, so we can use that instead of creating our own. And this is automatically updated with the main project, because that has a pull mirroring setup. We don't have the problem of CI minutes running out, because the pipelines are not created on our project, and those are run on the community fork. So they have basically much more CI minutes available, and we don't have to use our own. And since we everyone that asks access to that community fork can contribute to that fork, we can work together with other contributors without many problems, because we all have access to those branches and code, etc. So let me show you very quickly how to access the community forks, and if we want to, if we don't want to use community forks, how to create our own fork. So if we go to GitLab and we search for GitLab community as a group, there's this group GitLab community, and here are all the forks that have already been created. For example, this one is the community fork for the GitLab project. If we want, if someone wants to create a fork for another project, anyone can create an issue on this meta project. For example, to ask the team to create a fork, and once the fork gets created, we can basically move on and clone that fork locally and start working on that. And for the GitLab project itself, we will have a look later on how to actually set it up locally with a GDK. If we instead want to create our own fork, we can go to the main the project on the page of the main project, and we can use this fork button on the top right, and we can, for example, if we try this, we can provide the name of our own fork, select the namespace where we want to create it, and basically click fork project, wait for it to finish, and we can start working on that. Any questions so far? Let me have a look. Nothing here. Zoom is not playing nicely. Well, Christos, feel free to interrupt me if there are any questions.
Yes. AB said, and don't forget to stop pipelines after forking, after pushing for sure. Also, do you want to, re-highlight why we want to do the community fork instead of like our personal fork?
Yeah, basically using community fork, we don't have to manually, for example, rebase with the main project, the official project master. So that's automatically updated. We don't have the problem of running out of CI minutes, because all the pipelines are run on the community fork and not on our namespace. And it's easier to collaborate with other contributors, because everyone that has access to the community fork can work together with all the other people that has access to that project. So these are the main reasons. What about the stopping the pipelines?
AB left a comment. AB, are you referring so stopping the pipeline so you don't like get a? It's here in the chat. So you don't like.
Oh, here is the chat.
In the chat of Zoom.
Yeah.
So I think. By the way, Marco, we can see your screen.
Yeah.
It's avoid minutes exhaustion. So that's why so just like to make it clear for everyone, that's why we ask people to fork the community, the GitLab community repo. So this is a workaround so you don't run out of CI/CD minutes. If you fork on your own personal namespace, if you go and you fork the GitLab repo on your personal namespace, then you're gonna need a lot of minutes to be able to contribute to GitLab. And if you have like more like 2 or 3 MRs, you soon run out of minutes. I can help you with that. We can give you more extra minutes for sure to contribute, but in order to not have to reach out for extra minutes, it's highly advised to fork the community fork repo.
Yeah, basically using the community fork, we skip altogether that problem about the CI minutes running out.
No, AB, because it's gonna be like the group. There is a policy there that you're not gonna use your own pipelines, your own minutes to run the pipelines. You're gonna be using the group's pipelines, group minutes, sorry, for pipelines. So you're not gonna be like using your own personal ones.
Yeah. You can't see my screen right now, right?
Yes, we can, the slide deck.
Oh, okay. So I learned about a new feature on Zoom. I can pause the screen sharing. Okay. So moving on. Setting up GDK locally. GDK has some prerequisites, namely ASDF, Homebrew, and some other command line tools. But we have a very handy one-line installation command that we can run to install all the prerequisites and set up GDK locally. And we are going to have a look at that now. So let me copy the installation command. There's a link to all of this on these slides that I provided. On the agenda. So basically running this command that I just copied, it will create a GitLab development kit folder on our current folder and set up GDK in there. First, it's interactive. So first thing, it's going to ask if we want to change the name of the GDK folder. By default, it's GitLab development kit, and I'm not going to change that. And this is the important step. Basically, we have to provide the URL to clone the GitLab repository. In our case, we are going to get the command from, let me quickly go back to the community forks. We are going to use the URL of the GitLab community fork. Basically, using the clone button right here, we can copy the clone with HTTPS. And we're going to paste it in here. And now it's going to take some time to finish set up the GDK and set up all the GitLab instance with the data seeding, the database, and all of that. It can take quite some time because it has to download quite a bit of data. But with my connection, it usually takes about 20 minutes, but that's only for the first time that we set up the GDK locally. Later, if we only have to update it, it's much faster. And while this is setting up GDK locally, we're going to have a look at starting a Gitpod instance to work on the GitLab project, because that's usually much faster than setting up GDK. And usually not because Gitpod is slow, but because GitLab is a massive project to set up. So to start a Gitpod instance, it's quite easy because that's integrated on GitLab, and we have a very handy Gitpod button right here. And by default, you might see Web IDE instead of Gitpod, but you can use the dropdown to change over to Gitpod. And by clicking this button right here, Gitpod will start and will start creating a workspace for us to work on the GitLab project. And now it's basically a waiting game to see which one is faster. Let me have a look if we have other questions in the meantime. Yeah, AB, you don't need to fork the community repo. You can use that repo by itself. If you want to use your own fork, you have to fork the original project, not the community fork.
You mean to join the group?
Yeah, we have to join. Because I already have access. So let me see. Okay. Basically, on the community project, for example, on the GitHub community fork, right here at the top, I have live project because I already have access to this project. If you don't have access, you're going to have a request access button or link, and that's basically going to send an email or a ping to the maintainers of the project to let you basically access the project.
Sorry for jumping in. I'm just gonna quickly showcase it.
Oh yeah,
So,
super.
Thanks, Laurent. Laurent already posted a link on how to request access, and the other option is like you go to the repo to the group from here. You click here, you see the request access. You click that, you request access, and we'll review it as soon as possible, and you get access. And then you can just like come here, you can clone the repo, and then you have access. Right, Marco?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry for that, AB and everyone, for the confusion. It's something we try, something new that we try in order to avoid like the whole process of running out of minutes and have to request new ones, and like that takes more time than contributing to that repo.
So
I stopped your screen, Marco. You need to restart it.
Yeah, I was just taking a look. Gitpod is almost done. So let me share my screen once again. You can see it now, right? So Gitpod is almost done setting up, while GDK is still cloning the GitLab project. So I think Gitpod will be the winner. In the meantime, I'm quickly going to show you basically Git pod once it's started. Down here on the terminal, we have two terminals available, one for GDK and one for GitLab. And basically the one with GitLab bash, we can use it to run our Git commands to, for example, add file to the stage, or create commit, push, or things like that. And the other one, the GDK bash, we can use it to manage our GDK. Basically, we can start and stop it, or use some other commands. For example, using GDK, while that's finishing to set up, I can showcase some GDK commands if the Zoom bar gets out of the way. Okay. Because there are some pretty useful commands made available by GDK. And the terminal went out. Come on. Okay. Basically, GDK help, it's going to show us the list of all the available commands, some of which are basically GDK start to start all the services, or we can use the same command to start a single component of GDK. Stop has this is going to stop the service. Status is going to check. GDK restart is basically the one that me personally, I use it the most, because that's going to solve almost all the problems when you have GDK running for quite some time and there are some errors, strange errors happening. You do a GDK restart, and sometimes it's going to fix those. And other really useful commands are GDK cleanup, which is going to basically remove all the log files created by the GDK instance, which can take up quite a lot of space. And GDK pristine, which is going to restore the changes, restore GDK to its initial status, basically. And another very useful thing about GDK help is at the end, it's going to show us the default username and password used by the GDK, the local GitLab instance. That if nice, I did have the same problem this morning while trying this out.
There's also a question about like GDK and the link used for the community fork.
Yeah, let me have a look.
Here's in the chat, but I'm also moving into the agenda.
Oh, thanks. And I can't find the chat anymore. Okay, found it. Okay, I'm going to show that one again. To clone the Zoom bar in the way. To the right link to clone the community fork is the one in here, basically on the community fork project. On the clone button, you have the clone which with HTTPS or with SSH, depending on what you have set up locally. If you have SSH set up, you can use this one too. But I personally use this one because I don't have SSH set up. And after you run the online installation command, you are asked to provide the URL to clone the project, and basically you have to provide one of these two. Yeah, I did have the same problem this morning while trying to set up Gitpod. Basically, I don't know what's really happening, but using a GDK update fixed it. So let's hope that works, so we can show that too. Yeah, the GDK workshop has the problem about time management where things need to get set up, and it can take a little bit of time.
Anatoly mentioned that probably Gitpod uses an old image, which might be.
It might be the issue, yeah.
Anatoly, okay. Anatoly is AB. So
Yeah, I thought so.
I didn't thought so.
Come on. Yeah, I really hope this works. I mean, this morning it worked because GDK is still cloning the GitLab project. And I don't want you to wait in here in silence, staring at my screen.
As we're just waiting at the moment, are we, Marco?
Yeah.
So it might be worth I can just try and share something while that's running. I'm pretty new to Gitpod myself, but there's a concept of something called pre-builds. Pre-builds aim, I think, to run a lot of this kind of in the background. So there's a webhook, and every time a commit is made to master, the webhook pings Gitpod, and Gitpod tries to run and create a pre-build. I think the idea is there that when you then come to launch a workspace, that the pre-build would have kind of prepared and run a lot of this in preparation. I'm still new to it and kind of playing with it at the moment, so I haven't fully figured it out yet. And I'm not sure whether my access is different to yours, but if while you're waiting for this you wanted to browse to just the gitpod.io website, I would be interested to see if you can see any of the information about the kind of project. I don't think you can. So on mine, I see that I'm part of a team. So I guess because I've got a gitlab.com email address,
Okay.
I have visibility of something slightly different. And it just means that I can see whether there are any pre-builds and what the status of those pre-builds is. But the main thing to highlight, I guess, is that it's something that I'm very conscious of, and I think the team are very conscious of, and we would love to improve the time that it takes to spin up these environments. So expect that to be something that is coming. My ideal would be that you can click the button to start launching the workspace, maybe go and get a coffee, and by the time you come back, so sub 5 minutes, that it'll be up and running.
Yeah, well, I actually managed to get it sub 5 minutes, but it's quite random at the moment.
So probably does then go along with what I said about to do with the commits to master. So perhaps when you did it earlier on, because we've got pull mirroring enabled, maybe there was the pull mirroring ran at say 10 o'clock this morning. You then spun up a workspace at 10:30 when a pre-build had been created. Maybe the pull mirroring then ran again just before you started this session, so it meant that there wasn't a pre-build in place. But
yeah,
we're learning, and it's certainly, I'm going to say, easier, potentially quicker as well, to then getting a whole environment set up on your local machine.
And in the meantime, Gitpod is back to life.
I was hoping my rambling would take us just enough time for it to get back, if this actually works.
Yes. So let me go back. Basically, now that Gitpod is actually running and we can check the GDK status down here on the GDK bash terminal, we can run GDK status and we see that all the main services are running. And it popped up very briefly earlier that down on the right corner that an external port was made visible. The 3000 port 3000 was visible, and it had a button to open the link on another browser page. If we miss that message, there's a ports tab down here, and we can use the 3000 port to open a browser tab. And this is now starting. Basically, at the start, it will show this this message because GDK is still initializing, and it takes a bit of time to initialize. And usually it takes longer when it's being watched, for example, in this case. But once it's done, and I hope it will be done in just a moment. Maybe. Services are running, so it's only a matter of waiting for this to come to get up.
Anatol is asking, can you bring top to inspect what is the current bottleneck? Is it memory, CPU, or IO? And Lee is suggesting GDK or GDK tail can help.
Yeah, GDK tail will show us what it's doing, basically. And I don't really think this time it's going to help us very much. Let me have a look at what Natalie said. Oh. But to inspect, what is the current bottleneck? It's doing stuff.
I think that's just the background jobs so that run maybe like every minute or few minutes. I know sometimes when I get stuck in this similar state, aha, sign in. You might be in action, Marco.
Oh, yes, we are. So it just takes some time. So basically, when we finally get to this page, we have to, the first time we have to log in with the default root username and password, which if we don't have it at hand, we can use GDK help to get it. Down here, we have the username and the password. And the first thing that it's going to ask us is to change the default password. So we provide the current password, the new one. And we have to log in once again with the password that we just changed. Also, and we basically have not local because we're using Gitpod, but if we were using GDK, we are GDK locally, we would have a local instance of GitLab up and running to test all of our changes. And yeah, basically that. So let me have a look if this one also finished. No, my GDK setup is still seeding data to the database. My internet connection isn't the best, so it took quite a lot to clone the GitHub repo. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Gitpod can be used to work on basically all of GitLab projects, for example, 3A jobs, the handbook, and all of the project related to GitLab. And even if it's not available by default, we should also always have the Gitpod button available up in here or in the dropdown to actually set up the GDK, the Gitpod workspace for that specific project. And the only downside of using Gitpod is that if we are, since Gitpod is a software as a service that we can use, it depends on the tier that we have on our own personal account of Gitpod. By default, the free account has some limitation. For example, the amount of time that you can use, that you can run a workspace, but they're not that bad. We can use that without too many problems. And also, if we use that to contribute to open source, I think we can ask to get the open source contributor or something, and to overcome some of those limitations. Set up the root user, we did that. So now I would like to briefly mention how to keep our own fork, our personal fork, if we decide to use that, in sync with the main GitLab project. So on the slides, I added the commands that we need to run in order to to pull any update from the main GitLab project. Basically, we have to add a git remote. In this case, I called it upstream, tracking the original GitLab project. We have to fetch, and this is we need to do this only the first time when we don't have that remote set up. After we have done that, we can do we can run all of these commands, and they're always the same, basically. Git fetch upstream master is going to fetch all the changes on the upstream, so the main GitLab project. We're going to use git checkout master to move to our own forks master branch, and we're going to rebase the master branch from the main GitLab project. Once we have done that, we can push the changes to our own fork using providing these flags. The force with Liz is not really necessary, but it's good to use so we don't run into merge problems or something like that. The the -o CI skip option is the most important one, because that's basically telling GitLab to not run pipeline for our push, so we don't use our own CI minutes without need, because every time that we push to master, a pipeline would run, but we can skip that when we are updating our fork. And the -- no verify is needed to skip the left hook on when pushing the changes up to our own master. This should not be necessary anymore, but I didn't have the time to test it because left hook should have been disabled on the master branch. Just in case, I put it in here so we have reference to that option also too. And after updating our own fork with master, we will need to also run another command, which is GDK update. And that's needed because if GitLab updated dependencies, for example, the version of Ruby gems or YAML packages, or even if they didn't update any dependency, but there have been some database migrations, we have to apply those migrations. Otherwise, we won't be able to use the GitLab instance. And the way we do that is by using the command, the GDK update command. And that basically does all of these things automatically. So it installs the dependency updates and apply all the database migrations. And basically, all of the times when you run GDK update, in the end, you will get a file changed that inside the folder DB, there's a structure.sql file. That's basically the SQL file to set up the GDK, the GitLab database. And if after a GDK update, that file has changes, we can safely revert those changes back because we don't need those changes locally. And one other thing that's really important, if we don't pay attention, after we run GDK update, if we had stashes on our local GitLab repository, all of those stashes would have been popped. So we have to stash them once again. And other than that, keeping GDK up to date is really easy because we just need to run this GDK update command. other useful GDK commands we already covered. For example, the GDK help, GDK start and stop and restart to manage our GitLab instance. GDK update, we just had a look. GDK cleanup is used to trim the logs, as we mentioned earlier. GDK kill is useful, for example, when you have to stop your own GitLab instance and the GDK stop isn't enough. And GDK kill basically doesn't wait. It's going to kill all the services spun up by GDK locally, and so you can start it afresh, basically. Anything else or any other questions so far? Because setting up GDK and Gitpod is basically done. I only have left some notes on how to get help on while contributing to GitLab.
There's one question on the chat that Lee addressed, but let me just verbalize it for the people in the live stream.
Yeah.
On the previous slide, you mentioned DB/structure SQL.
Yeah.
So Ashutosh is asking, what's that? Lee's response is, it contains a dump of the database schema. When running updates, sometimes your local database starts to drift a little bit, hence why we ended up with some odd divs in DB/structure SQL. If you want to add something, Marco.
No, basically it's that the db/structure.sql is just a file. Basically, I can show you. .sql. This is the file that we're talking about. It basically has all the setup needed for the database. And when we update GDK, it's going to run all the migrations, all the missing migrations. And those are most likely going to make some changes to this file, but we can safely revert those back because the file that we cloned locally is already up to date. The GDK update is going to basically reorder those queries inside the structure.sql file, so we can safely revert those changes back. Nothing more than that. And I'm going to quickly mention how we can get help while contributing to GitLab. First of all, we don't, if we start working on something and we are stuck, we don't have to be afraid of opening an MR, even if the work that we are done isn't complete yet. We can open an MR and ping anyone from the community if we know someone that can help us, or anyone from the team that we can ask for help. The other thing that we can do is join our Discord server. That basically, if you're stuck or you have a problem, you can paste a question in there and someone most likely will answer and try to help you out. And also we have every Tuesday, we have a pairing session where we do live coding or show our reasoning, triage issues or MRs. And basically, you are going to watch us contribute to GitLab, so you can have an idea of how contributing to GitLab works. And sometimes also how we struggle while contributing to GitLab. That's basically it from me.
Speaking of which, can I just say that also Lee is looking, potentially Marco together. No, sorry, I should not say that. I should say that we're going to have another session later this week about how to work on issues and hopefully some live coding. So if you need any, if you join the Discord, you're going to see it as an event there, or if you join our meetup group, you're going to see it as an event. and we're gonna advertise it. We're gonna publish it towards the end of the day.
Awesome. I think that, yeah, how will I start? Okay, I should be done with my presentation, basically. I don't know if there are any other questions, or if there are any other question later, you can always pop a question on the Discord server, and we'll try to answer there.
There's a question about what GDK tail does.
GDK tail.
Tail.
GDK tail, that's going to print the logs of GDK, basically, of GitLab. Our GitLab instance is constantly logging out information, the services, the Rails application, all of those logs, and GDK tail is basically showing us all of those logs. Am I right, Lee?
I think so. Yeah, I was just popping a message in the chat. I think you might be able to tail the log file manually if you really wanted. It just gives you a slightly nicer, easier, and I'm going to say more colorful way. You can pass it which component you want to see the logs for. So you can do a GDK tail Postgres, or a GDK tail Rails-web, or something as well to filter out and just show the relevant logs, which I find really helpful.
Yeah, also on GDK help, where all the commands are listed, there's an example, for example, to show only the logs for Redis or Postgres or Rails, all the services.
I can't remember if you highlighted. I know you've got all of the commands on that slide, Marco, but the cleanup, GDK cleanup, I use fairly frequently because that development log does get quite big quite quickly. If you're doing a lot of development, similarly as we change versions of Ruby, we change versions of Golang, you do end up with some dependencies installed via ASDF that can be removed, and GDK cleanup's fairly good at kind of tidying up, freeing up a bit of space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mentioned that briefly during the presentation.
Thanks, Marco. And I'll reiterate what you said about raising a merge request. Can't stress that enough, because we've got, I want to say, 50,000 plus issues open. So getting attention on issues is somewhat more challenging. As soon as you've raised a merge request, we know that you've got that intent to contribute, and will be, inevitably more of us available to come and help hold your hands.
Yeah, and also it's easier to help out because we can have a look at the changes that you made, or at least what you're looking to change, and we have some context. So it's easier also for us to actually provide help. As a beginner, what should be the process to start contributing? Though I have to remark that it's just a newbie luck. What do you mean about the process to start contributing? Because once you have set up GDK locally or using Gitpod and you start making some changes, you're already contributing. Do you want some? Yeah, exactly. Do you want some guidance on how to find issues or things to do?
we tend to find that there's two objectives, if that's the right word. So sometimes you'll come because you've got something that you've identified. You're a GitLab customer, a user, and there's something that bugs you, something that pains you that you wish could work better or is broken. In which case, I guess you already have some ideas. You've maybe created your own issues or found some. Otherwise, there are a couple of labels we could probably share something. The labels that are good to look for. I think quick win is maybe one of the ones that we're kind of favoring more than others at the moment, and good for new contributors. Yeah, Marco, I'll let you go on.
Oh, that's Christos.
If you want to go, it's like I had the contributing guide just open. So
yeah, there's the page that we're going to put a link on the notes on the agenda for today. That basically there's the documentation on how to start contributing to GitLab, and there are links to get to search for issues for the various areas of the project. But yeah, like Lee was mentioning, if you already don't have a not good understanding, but at least you know how GitLab works internally, seeking for good contributor seeking community contributions are issues that basically the team, those are the ones that have been fleshed out, and also they have guidance on the description about how to solve the problems. Am I right?
yes, that's correct. The seeking community contribution is like a new label that we use for well-documented issues for everyone to contribute to. There has been like the accepting merge requests label, which is deprecated. It is applied to around 20,000 issues. And most of them are not like properly documented, so it's not a good experience for people to contribute to. So we invite people to look for the seeking community contributions and good for new contributors, which is like easy wins.
Yeah, and also if you have more confidence on backend stuff or front-end stuff, you can also apply that label to search, to filter for issues only related to backend or front-end.
Frontend is always a really nice, really well documented issues. And something I wanted to add here is like on the contributing guide, they're also grouped based on groups. Groups are like, you can think of them as different products at GitLab. Some of them they have, it's like it's easier to get started contributing to because it has a smaller code base. So you can like filter them based on the group, but you can do it also on the search issue here. If you like in the labels, you just like put label is group. Cannot type today. It's only Monday. Sorry. Let's say, give me a group, respond. Here we are, group respond, and you can search for them if you want, but only if you like understand the differences between different groups. And also, last but not least, you know, there are different guides for front end contributing here and backend, and there is a link to GitLab architecture for you to better understand like how it's layered in a way. Anything else anyone would like to add or ask? For people watching on the live stream, hello. We have We're gonna try to document all the, we have all the questions that agenda doc. Move them from Zoom. Oh, actually, maybe there are some questions there. Let me think of it. Quickly check.
On the live stream?
Yes, because the live stream has like a chat.
Oh,
So we have all the questions that agenda doc. From Zoom. Oh, okay. So George has
oh yeah.
some notes. Thank you, George. I'm gonna move them into the agenda doc for sure. All right. If there's nothing else, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Marco. Grazie mille, Marco.
No worries.
For your time. I need to link this video to the contributing guide for sure for people who want to get started. And yeah, as Marco said, you can find us on Discord for sure. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at any given time. Marco, oh, stop sharing. Sorry, I was sharing.
No, I don't have anything to add. Only thanks for bearing with me for this first workshop that I had. I hope that you learned something, at least that.
I did.
Oh, well. Again, thanks a lot to everyone that joined us.
Thank you all. And stay tuned. We're going to have another one on Wednesday for more like hands-on.
Awesome.
See you all.
Bye, everyone.